Imagine waking up in an unknown place, terrified and confused about how you ended up there. In this episode, can you help Emily escape from this scary mansion maze? Keep an eye out for the episode question at the end of each story. You are about to experience the outermost reality.
I woke up to a light piercing through my eyelids. My vision cleared, and I found myself lying on an old mattress on the floor in an unfamiliar room. The walls were bare and unyielding, the color of old concrete. A single light bulb hung from the ceiling, glaring over everything. There was no furniture, no windows, just a single mattress. I tried to move, but my muscles were stiff and sore. Panic surged as I asked where I was and how I got here. I reached for the door handle, my last hope of escape, only to find it locked. I looked around the room for clues to my whereabouts. Underneath the bed mattress, I found a handful of half-dissolved prescription pills. Tears streamed down my face as memories began to surface. My name is Emily Glass, and the last thing I remember was walking to my car after teaching my college night class. I was grabbed from behind. I tried screaming, but I was quickly stifled by a cloth pressed against my mouth. I remember the smell of chemicals, and within moments, everything went black. I'm a prisoner and held against my will inside this room. For the past week, my abductor forced me to take these pills that would put me in this zombie-like state. I pressed my ear against the locked door, but heard nothing. I screamed out loud. Then, I heard a soft, almost hesitant voice from the other side of the door. "Are you okay?" I froze, my heart racing. "Who are you, and where am I?" There was a pause before she responded. "My name is Sarah. I'm in the room next to yours. I was once a prisoner just like you, but now I live with your kidnapper. His name is Damien." Her voice trembled, and she was clearly as scared as I was. The realization that I wasn't alone brought a strange mix of relief and fear. At least there was someone else who might understand what was happening. "Sarah, how did you end up here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I was homeless when Damien kidnapped me," she replied, a hint of frustration in her tone. I walked up to his car and asked for money. That was the last thing I remembered. Next thing I know, I woke up here. I leaned against the door, closing my eyes. "Sarah, how are you not a prisoner anymore?" I sat silently, anticipating her response. She explained that it had taken years for Damien to trust her. When he finally had faith in her, Damien set her free. She understood that living in his mansion was better than being homeless. In other words, Damien had her believe it was better to be a captive than destitute and hungry. At that moment, I felt pity for Sarah. Then she whispers behind the door, "Emily, you are in danger and need to escape from here." I'm sliding something underneath. "Why are you helping me?" I ask, keeping my cool despite feeling distressed. There was a pause, and then she replied, "I don't want Damien to love anyone but me. He must have admired you for a while, because he kidnapped you." At that moment, a folded, wrinkled paper slid underneath the door. I hurried and grabbed it. My heart pounded as I unrolled it, my hands trembling. Inside was a hand-drawn map, the lines shaky but clear. Markings and symbols indicated various rooms and pathways. At the bottom of the map, a message was scrawled in hurried handwriting. "Follow this map. Escape before midnight because Damien sleeps in 2-hour increments." At that moment, before I could thank Sarah, I heard the door unlock. The urgency of the note sent a shiver down my spine. I looked down at my wristwatch, and it was 11:18 p.m. This meant I had 42 minutes before Damien would wake up. I looked at the map again, trying to memorize the layout. It seemed to show a way out of the mansion, but the paths twisted and turned like a maze. I didn't have much time to figure it out. With the note clutched tightly, I moved quickly but cautiously, constantly checking the map to ensure I was on the right path. The corridors stretched, each one looking almost identical to the last. I passed through rooms filled with old furniture, dusty portraits, and broken mirrors. I followed the map as best as possible, turning left where it said to turn left and bypassing certain rooms marked with an X. My heart raced with each step, and the fear of being caught drove me forward. I looked at my watch again. It was now 11:38 p.m. and time was running out. As I reached the basement, the air grew colder. The map indicated I had arrived at the room I needed to enter. I stepped inside, my footsteps echoing against the concrete floor. The room looked like a storage room that smelled of mildew, a scent that sent a shiver down my spine. Boxes were stacked haphazardly along the walls, and old furniture lay covered in white sheets, their shapes reminiscent of ghostly figures frozen in time. I wondered if Sarah had made a mistake, for this room seemed to be a dead end. I began to shake nervously because I knew I was running out of time and Damien would check on me. Something caught my eye as I was about to give up and explore other rooms in this mansion maze. A mannequin stood there, partially draped in a tattered old dress. Its lifeless eyes seemed to follow me as I moved further into the room. I pushed the dummy aside, and a small, narrow door was hidden in the shadows. I opened the door and found myself in a dark tunnel. My heart beat out of my chest as I held onto Sarah's map. The tunnel's walls were lined with stone, and the path seemed to stretch forever. I saw a faint light ahead, and I quickened my pace. As I approached the end of the tunnel, I could see the light from the moon peeking through the bars on the locked gate. Trapped, I began to turn right back around when I suddenly heard, "Emily, stop." Damien's voice sent a jolt of terror through my body. I see his silhouette standing at the other end of the tunnel, and he is holding onto a leash with a sizable guard dog. The dog barked as its growl echoed through the tunnel, running towards me. I ran as fast as I could, and when I reached the exit door, I noticed an unlocked padlock. For a split moment, I thought Sarah must have unlatched it for me. I threw myself out, feeling the wind whip against my skin as I tumbled to the ground below. Pain exploded in my ankle as I landed, but I forced myself to stand, adrenaline coursing through my veins. There wasn't any time to look back. This was a life or death moment for me. I was somewhere inside a heavily wooded area. I ran in the dark, branches scratching my face and snagging on my clothes. I could hear the beast behind me, relentless and fast. Each bark reminded me of how close it was and how little time I had. In the far distance, I could hear Damien screaming, "Emily, you are not going anywhere. You belong with us." I briefly turned around to see how far the menacing beast was. It was closing in fast, and I knew it was a matter of time before it would catch me. Then it lunged. I braced myself for impact as I fell forward, my face smashing into the dirt. The dog sank its teeth into my leg, and I screamed in pain. It felt like my leg was on fire, the pain radiating through my entire body. I stood back up on pure adrenaline and ran towards a creek right before me. I knew I had to cross it if I wanted to escape. The deep creek's water was my only hope of preventing the dog from attacking me. I gasped as the icy water soaked my shoes and numbed my legs. Each step was a struggle, the current tugging at me, but I pressed on. I could see the canine stopping at the creek's edge, barking as teeth bared, looking for a way to enter. But the water's strong current prevented it. I have escaped another attack, but I am far from feeling safe. Damien jumped into the creek and was only about 20 yards from catching me. I hoped to lose him, but my injured leg prevented me from running. My lungs burned, and my leg was injured, but fear kept me moving. Damien was about to catch up to me and yelled, "Emily, Come back home." Then, a sheer miracle happened. I spotted a flicker of blue and red lights reflecting off the trees. A police vehicle, its lights flashing, was parked at the intersection. Relief washed over me, and I limped toward it, my voice hoarse as I shouted, "Help me." The officer turned, his hand resting on his holstered gun, as he assessed the situation. He saw me running toward him, panic etched on my face, and immediately stepped forward, his expression shifting to one of concern. "Miss, what's wrong?" I pointed back down the woods, my words tumbling frantically. "I'm being chased, and he's right behind me." The officer's eyes narrowed, and he shone his flashlight down the wooded area. But to my astonishment, he was gone. Shaken, I climbed into the back of the police vehicle, my hands trembling as the officer drove me to the nearest hospital.
I'm sitting on a hard plastic chair lined up against the wall, my fingers tapping nervously on my thigh. I glance at the large clock hanging above the receptionist's desk. It had only been 15 minutes since I arrived, but it felt like hours. I'm Damien, and I'm at the police station. The past 24 hours have been filled with a series of unfortunate events. It all started about 3 weeks ago when my older sister unexpectedly passed away. She had always left it in her will that if anything were to happen to her, I would take over as legal guardian of her daughter. My sister's child's name is Emily Glass, and she suffers from schizophrenia. As her uncle and now legal guardian, I would be responsible for her care. I haven't seen Emily in over 20 years. The last time I saw her, she was only 7 years old. After my sister passed away, I assumed that Emily's transition to living with me would be painless. You see, I had done well financially and had the means to provide my niece with all the support she needed. Living in a mansion, I am already accustomed to having helpers maintain my home. In anticipation of Emily moving in, I hired a private nurse named Sarah. Sarah has many responsibilities, including ensuring my niece takes her medication regularly. Things began to unravel when Emily ran away from my home in the middle of the night. Her leaving triggered my home's alarm system, and I immediately looked for her. I took my 8-year-old beagle to help track her down because I lived in a heavily wooded area and was afraid she would get lost. I dialed 911, and luckily, they sent a police officer who eventually found Emily lost wandering the night. Nurse Sarah informed me that Emily hadn't been taking her medication. Sarah found Emily's prescription pills she was supposed to be taking hidden underneath her mattress. Sarah presumed Emily was on top of her mental disorder because she would pretend to swallow the pills in front of her. She must have cleverly spit her medications after Sarah left. Looking back, I have underestimated this sudden change in Emily's life. The combination of her mother's passing and having Emily live with me triggered her paranoia. According to the police officer I spoke to, Emily believed I kidnapped her and held her captive. This morning, I'm coordinating with authorities to have Emily transported to Hope Springs Recovery Hospital to get her help.